I can't hear you.
Doors. All those people are pounding down the doors to come and watch Bourbon Street. I mean, aren't you flattered? Isn't it amazing? They're not going to stop for police, for barricades, nothing. They want to see Bourbon Street.
2 weeks off. There's a lot of passion for it, so it was great to see. How you doing?
Happy New Year. Happy 2021, 2020.1. How are you? How was the holiday? Did you have a holiday?
I did. 10 days without a computer on was the best 10 days in 30 years.
I actually think that the last 10 days were the longest period I didn't hear from you in our nearly 17 and a half year relationship.
Yeah,
One of us is a little bit hurt for the record.
I was trying to break up, but fuck, it didn't work.
What are we going to do, by the way, when COVID's over and we're actually going to be in the same place and we might make this into a proper show?
It could be bad. I like the distance. I like the half an hour a week of the banter back and forth. It keeps it rich. Distance keeps the heart fonder, or gets the heart, whatever that saying is. I think that's
absence. True. It's absence.
Yeah. Distance. In our case, it's distance.
It's distance, not absence. But let's think about this seriously. And you and I had this discussion yesterday with the producers, as if the world needs us to jump into the political schmog that we saw this week. But just lost in all that, a little bit of hope, right? Court case after court case denying Trump, slowly getting closer to an inauguration, a confirmation. Unbelievable Georgia on Tuesday, sending the first Jewish senator from the state ever, sending the first Black Democrat senator who actually preaches in Dr. King's church. And then you have this schmozzle.
What was your thoughts on the schmozzle?
Well, look, my thoughts, and I got to tell you, I don't get headaches. I don't not sleep. I'm spoiled. I don't know why it is. Not, my worst day doesn't keep me up at night. My thoughts are probably the same as a million people, which is if those were Black protesters, they would have been tear gassed and rubber pelleted and beaten. And the law and order president, who's the same person who causes terrorism, would be going nuts. My thoughts are, if I'm Al-Qaeda or another terrorist organization, I'm thanking the Trump supporters. They just showed me how easily it would be to go and massacre dozens of U.S. politicians. I mean, I happen to be watching live. I think the senator was from Arizona when she was speaking in the Senate and repudiating the assertions that her election in her state wasn't well conducted. And all of a sudden the doors flung open. And on Twitter, I had seen the protesters and they're banging away. I didn't know the two could possibly meet.
Converge.
All of a sudden the doors flew open to the Senate. The security guys came in. You saw people's faces. I don't know if you've seen the video of the guy who was tasked with getting, Mitch McConnell out of there.
No.
But any one of those people could have had a weapon that in the pull of one trigger could have killed. I mean, how do you get into Nancy Pelosi's office, write on a manila envelope, take selfies? I bet you when they finished cleaning the office, the guy probably left her a loaf in the corner.
Well, yeah, and they were there for hours. I mean, the deputy DNC person I saw interviewed, she said she was hiding for 5 hours.
Yeah.
I think that's the summary is A, how easy it was. And obviously, B, if that was Black Lives Matter, Muslim Brotherhood, a pride parade, would not matter what it was. The response would not have been the same. The other thing that's truly shows you the depths of evil is the fact of weren't the National Guard there? What was going on? And if you look at what actually happened, Trump daily promoted, come to the rally. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. You talk about the Chicago 7 with inciting a riot. Just look what happened here. Look what happened here. It's going to be wild. Then they go there, and Trump was there. All the flags were Trump. And I'm not saying anything about Republican. This was a Trump rally.
Right.
The fact is, Rudy Giuliani goes on and says, trial by combat to the crowd. And there's, 30,000. Who knows what it is. Trump goes, confront the Capitol. The fact is, go there and make it happen. There's now 4 dead. 5th, the cop died today, so there's 5. The point is there's no National Guard. So me being a bit of a researcher, I'm going, why is there not the National Guard when Black Lives Matter was everywhere? Well, guess what? The governors control the National Guard in every single state except Washington, D.C.
Right.
And guess who gets to control the National Guard there? The president of the United States.
Yeah.
And the fact is, both parties were saying, get us help. And as you said, if there was guns in there, I guarantee those people were armed. They just weren't using them because they didn't need to. There could be hundreds. And then you go through that is the fact is Trump won't even send them in to ensure that they go in and actually disrupt that election. So he thinks he can be, if you don't have something on inciting a riot, if you don't have something on the fact of creating mayhem, causing murders or causing people to die, if it was anyone else, not to diminish Black Lives Matter in that case, but if it was any other person, they'd be in jail right now. They'd be being indicted. The fact is, there has got to be a case for inciting a riot, from them saying trial by combat. For Rudy Giuliani, he has to be shitting his pants that he could be spending a very long time where he may deserve or where he does deserve to be spent. So anyway,
I hope he is shitting his pants. And can you hear me, by the way? I think I froze for a minute. Okay, good.
No.
Look, I know we need to move on, but I'm going to spend another quick minute here. Cops taking selfies with the rioters, the terrorists. Don't even dare call them protesters. The fact that evening 53 people have been arrested. 47 of them were arrested for the fact that they had violated the curfew that had been installed quickly for 6 p.m. You know, you see these images of police holding their guns up at Black Lives Matter protesters with their children on their shoulders. I read an article the other day about how some high school kids in Minnesota decided for their graduation, because they couldn't have one for COVID, they put on their gowns and they went out in the streets and did a parade. And somehow the police thought they were protesters. Next thing you know, they had the laser on them. So you know what? I think any person of any sensibility should be offended, and that if you are, as a Black person, you should just be even more frightened. So let's move on. But one final comment. Mike Pence, and I'm not saying I like the man. I do actually respect him. That man has been a loyal servant to Trump for over 4.5 years. Who was in the Capitol not being rescued by his buddy? I mean, imagine you offend me in the next 5 minutes of this show. If there's protesters over at Price Street, like I'll call the OPP and the RCMP and the TPP and anybody you need. I might even come over myself and make sure you're all right. But if you don't think that Trump can cross you, there's multiple ex-wives, there's discarded children, and if Don Jr. thinks they're the Kennedys, and now I'm just ranting all over the place. So let's just move on. Let's talk about the weekly.
Sorry, I'm going to leave one more. Right. The guy that was on Nancy Pelosi's desk was a picture of him with Rudy Giuliani, not from the show, but in the last several months, along with the person who's sitting in Pence's seat. Another picture with Rudy Giuliani. I think how bad it was, the fact that 5 people, everything we saw there. I think they have set the table for their just desserts. I think
imagine being the wife, children, father, brother, best friend of that cop who went that morning to do something as simple as to protect the Capitol while the process of democracy is happening. And that night, a husband, a father, an uncle doesn't come home. And I'm not saying that's worse than the protesters, but you've got to imagine that the people that protested died. It's easy to say just desserts, but I am too chicken to be a police officer or a soldier or a firefighter.
You too.
And it's horrific. And I don't care what the rally is. There shouldn't be violence against cops in a Black Lives Matter protest, and there shouldn't be, and to your point, in the Trump party. So
let's move on to a bit of a lighter topic.
Yeah. Do we have one?
Weekly pulse.
I need a moment.
Weekly pulse. So what's going on first week of January? People talk about New Year's resolutions, but they're supposed to be private. So we went out and asked people, just still make them. And the number one resolution people claim was not quit making New Year's resolutions, but that's not the fact. 2/3 of people across Canada, US, and UK made New Year's resolutions, 1 or 2. which is surprising to me given my personal success rate at New Year's resolutions. I stopped this about 10 years ago after 30 years of continual failure.
What prompted you to stop?
30 years in a row of failing within 30 days is a pretty good sign that that's called insanity.
What was your, well, yeah, I know what was your most, do you remember what your most ridiculous, I'm going to cheat while you answer. Do you remember what your most ridiculous New Year's resolution was?
This year's, even though I didn't make one, but my guide was I do not want to use the word COVID or Trump ever again.
Yeah.
And I've broken it 3,000 times already, given what's going on. But that was my hope, was that those words are never used again.
So 10 years ago you stopped, but 2/3 of North Americans and Brexiteers still make New Year's resolutions.
Multiple ones. And so the next question we said was, did you make one this year, Mark?
Did I?
Yes.
I didn't make resolutions, but I have 3 things that I'm dedicating my year to.
Yes.
They're different. They're different than resolutions.
What are they?
Purpose, passion, and profit.
In that order?
Well, I probably was about to say profit first, but I was waiting for the boo birds to jump in. I would say they can't exist without each other. So it is a 3-legged stool. And, you know, the reality of life is, you and I are running small businesses. Thousands, millions of people are running small businesses in Canada, the US, and in Brexit. And we have to make money in order for our companies to succeed. At the same time, I think one of the lessons for me in 2020 was how purpose maybe had slipped out of my radar. You know, I was having a chat with somebody the other day, and they were talking about, you know, all these things we're doing in our lives, volunteer things that have been on the side of our desk. For me, they are in the middle of my desk now. And I put passion in there because a year ago, I wrote a note to my team about, hey, here are some things I want to do. You might call them resolutions. And I read that note to myself over the holidays, and, you know, they were losing weight. They were taking time to get fit. I wanted to do more writing because I knew my book was going to come out. I wanted to start another one. They were about expanding Sponsorship X, a platform that you've helped me build globally. And they were about spending more time thinking and reading. In fact, I said to my team last year, I'm not coming in to work before noon. It was a trick I used to write the book. And I'm like, I can add more value to our company and to our business if I'm not here in the morning. And so passion for me is something that I think many people might have felt they lost a little bit in 2020 fighting this fight. And I don't want to lose passion. I mean, you know, I love sports. I love my mom. She turns 85 this Sunday. When I was 9 years old, I remember mom telling me, you can't make a living in sports. You got to stop reading all the sports magazines. She kind of apologized when I launched Trojan Sports Marketing. She really apologized when her bridge club friends and really his kids started wanting to get jobs from me. But the point is, I got to be on my passion. So what about you?
As I said, I kept it simple to the Trump and COVID. I did not make, those are bigger overarching ones. So let's look at
let's go back to the real people.
Let's look at the 2,000 people around the world talking about it. Not surprising, but the number of things about fitness and health expressed in different ways is really interesting. Lose weight, which is different, but the same thing, of be healthy, which is different, the same thing as exercise more, which is different, but the same type of thing as happiness. But look at number 5, eat healthy, quit smoking, drink less. You look at all that, and there's no surprise that gyms go crazy January 1st to January 20th, even though they sign up for 90 days. But if you look at that, only COVID shows up at number 6. And that came out of the UK, which is an interesting open-ended fact because they have that second strain. Obviously, we do too, but the point is, you can see that's obviously under health as well as survive. But you don't see in there making money. You don't see in their purpose. Yours are much more overarching, but it's interesting to see how many different ways we talk about health and wellness, because be healthy could be mental health or think different or whatever it might be. So if we look at something, if we want purpose as a company, if we want purpose as a brand, if we want purpose as an agency, how do we actually fulfill this health and wellness? How do we actually help people do that? That's what I took from this, was how do we help the 40 people at Birch Street to go and say, how do we actually help them achieve that? Because we know that 6 and 10 are going to have something to do with that. That's what I took from this, which was interesting. Any further comment?
And every company in the world, every entrepreneur there should be looking at this and saying, consumers will pay money for this, lots of money, right? Right. I don't mean to be a profiteer, but I think to your point, if you were starting a business from scratch, this list gives you all the inspiration you need whatsoever to come up with an amazing concept.
So now let's look at the success. We know my personal success, I'm in that 33%. I am 0 out of 10. So we asked, how many do you achieve or keep in the past?
You're not at 0 in my mind, Donnie, just so you know.
I'm a 0. So a third is none. A third is 1, 2, or 3. But we still have hope. I look at this, you can look at 2 sides, the definition of insanity from Einstein, or the people are still hopeful and have inspiration, which I look at the positive side of things. The fact is, 10% complete 8, 9, or 10. Now, either they're lying to us.
I was going to say half of those people are liars.
Or they're people I've never met before. But it's inspiring that some people are actually that dedicated to do something and make it work. The point is, what I see from this is there's hope. Even if you have failure, even if you have shit, even if you have Trump, even if you have COVID, there's people out there wanting to do things to make themselves better, which is inspiring for 2021.
Or the resolutions for the people that made 8, 9, or 10 were like, have breakfast on Tuesday and have dinner on Wednesday and other tough high achievements. So, well, thanks for that. And I think it's here's the hard part, right? Whether it be resolutions, plans, whatever. How do you keep it going? And it's one of the things I think is the most telling is if you look at every time management, self-help, development guru in the world, they all boil down to the simplest thing. Make a to-do list every day and review that to-do list every day. It is the most simple and powerful way to keep your habits going. There's a billion books out there, one called Habit, The Power of Habit, that's amazing. But it's a simple approach.
In the past year, how many times have you made a list?
A list?
Yeah.
I make a to-do list every day.
I should start. How many times in 35 years do you think I've made a to-do list?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be the day one.
Perfect. Well, meet me tomorrow. So let's talk about tomorrow and yesterday. And, you look at the different sports leagues. Could you imagine, Don, when this started? I think back to March 13, 2020, which was kind of the D-Day for us here, where we're like, the world has officially, of course, it was a Friday the 13th, and I'm superstitious for a reason. Could you imagine being at NHL HQ or NBA HQ or whatever, and imagining that this invisible Will Smith defeatable virus would ruin 2 hockey seasons, 2 basketball seasons? I mean, I kind of thought they'll fix the 1920 season and I can't even do my dates right, and 2021 might start late, but it has wrecked 2 seasons or reinvented 2 seasons.
The first thing I looked at when this happened, the first 2 weeks last 2 weeks of March, the first 2 weeks, was how to plan, like what happened in 1917, 8, like right. How to actually plan. And the consistent thing they said was, no matter how bad you think it is today in the first 2 weeks, it's going to be infinitely worse than you can imagine your worst case. And I'm like, okay, let's plan the worst case scenario. Let's say, and I planned out the worst case scenario. And I went back and read and go, no matter how bad you think it is infinitely worse than you think it is. And I'm thinking, did I think bad enough? And you know what? I was really, really harsh. And my CFO, as you can imagine, is a pretty straight, unemotional individual. And he took the worst case scenario. We were both so wrong. We were both so optimistic because our only lens was what we knew from before, that right. Life goes on. And the fact is, and I'm old, and the point was I thought I was somewhat wise. And it just showed me, it humbled me once again to go, you have no clue what's going to happen. And no one could plan for, 2 seasons are done. And maybe 3 seasons. We have now a new strain coming in. Like, fuck me. Like, I don't know anyone that could have forecasted. And everyone said, no matter how bad you think it's going to be, it will be worse.
I had a monthly one-on-one check-in with a senior marketer, one of our biggest clients. And he said, how long do you think this is going to last? And I said, my date's July 1, 2021. And before he could reply, I was laughing. He goes, what are you laughing about? I said, don't you remember the presentation I gave you last April? Where I said my 3 dates were Victoria Day week in May, Canada Day. And I said, if things are horrible, it'll go to Thanksgiving. He broke out laughing. I said, but by the way, just, this one will be accurate, I promise you. But interesting pivots by sports teams. I love what's going on in hockey right now. And it's interesting. The NHL obviously struggling with the inability to sell tickets, have fans. Kudos to them. They've been able to figure out a way to, with the different governments, et cetera. Simon Hutt from the Globe and Mail wrote an interesting article about the sponsorships you're now seeing. My question to you, and you and I are in this business every day. I mean, I'll be blunt. I actually like this. I actually kind of in a way wish they went further and put the Scotia up top in the Discover. I mean, I get the geography, but what are your thoughts on this? How do you think consumers are going to, they've done a few things. Let's start with this one, this additional branding, this additional sponsorship.
So we were obviously looking at NASCAR, NASCAR or European IHF.
This looks like a NASCAR.
The reality is there is such speculation in the boardrooms of clients, specifically brands. Like, you can't do this. It's gonna bastardize what's going on. The logos on shirts, all the English European stuff, and we measure a lot of stuff.
England's no longer in Europe, just for the record.
And we take a lot of time looking at what actually happens. And I mean, I was surprised and amazed at how strong and how passionate fans were to these brands that actually helped them bring them what they love. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's come a long way. And the fact is, I think everyone in North America is now aware that if you do it right and do it tactfully, it actually enhances the brand tremendously. It actually links the brand to the sport or activity, and will actually make consumers feel better if you're authentic. And I know you hate that word. If you do what's right, it makes it better. So you look at that, it's a great thing. It's a great thing for.
Do you think they went far enough with the divisions? Like, do you think the North Scotia division? Or do you think from a business standpoint it should have been the Scotia division or the Scotia North? Or
I think you start off with an evolution rather than a revolution. I think it's an easy. It's a smart, tactful way that you sit there and you go, you know what? I can see some real impact here. You don't need to be the top. You just need to be part of the conversation. One thing we do all the time is enhance the end user's experience. Don't get in the way of it. So what I would look at that is that'd be a best practice of enhancing the experience potentially without getting in the way of it. So
it's funny you said revolution, because I'm sure you saw the woman that got tear gassed in the Capitol saying, we're part of a revolution. I can't remember her name. It wasn't Karen. Karen's going to kill me. She was some woman from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Her middle name was Karen.
True. What I think is pretty cool, though, people forget, sponsorship in sports has been a long time. And I'm a shareholder in the Green Bay Packers. Even though I'm a Steelers fan, I don't know if you know that, I actually own a share in the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, do you know where their name came from?
I do now. I didn't this morning.
Okay. So they were named after the Acme Meatpacking Company. And I think what people forget is that corporate ownership and engagement in teams has been around for a long time. People look at, oh, this is a European thing. Yeah, it's more prominent in Europe, but I love where the professional women's hockey is going with the Sonnet teams and the Scotiabank teams. Do I love the ever-changing name of bowl games? No, but if you think about the Rose Bowl was a marketing device for the Tournament of Roses in Pasadena, which was a celebration of roses. The Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, those were industrial-funded events to celebrate the cotton industry, the sugar industry. The Orange Bowl was because the state of Florida wanted people to come down there. And, when you and I were kids, where'd we get oranges? They all came from Florida.
Can you go back to that picture, James? Is that possible?
Do you want to see if I'm playing in that picture?
No, but I mean, if you want to see the changing landscape of what year is that from, just if you looked at a football team today, that would not be the look of the football team. That's how much, even though we seem like we're going backwards, we have to realize we are actually going forward.
Well, Don, you do realize in that era, black men were not allowed to play in the professional leagues, if that's what you're trying to get to. But on a business standpoint, because I've already done my social justice rant for the day, I think this is a good thing. And I think the big lesson here for those of us in sponsorship is the conversation between you and me and clients in the boardroom is the wrong conversation. Go talk to your consumers. people are like, oh, the consumer would be offended if the Toronto Maple Leafs all of a sudden were the Scotia Leafs.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, the big, like, they started putting names on shirts for MLSE or for MLS soccer.
Yeah.
And the point was, immediately we did pre and post on time of research. The fact is, if you look at US, you look at Man U, you look at what's going on there, the people revere that sponsor. Like, they revere the sponsor on the chest. They revere a Real Madrid fan looks at the practice jersey and cares about that. So forget about the person who doesn't like sport. Forget about the person who doesn't like the team. Go talk to a fan of the team, and they frickin' love it. They engage it. They understand it. They don't want 50 logos, but they're certainly doing no harm, but actually accelerating the joint between brand, which helps fund the sport, and the fan. They don't get in the way of it. So I think it's kudos across the board for doing this type of work.
And I think what you're seeing with whether it be the NBA with the small patches, whether you're seeing new deals, for example, the climate change arena, which is now about a movement and a case. And I think, people get a little bit hung up. So I'm going to close here on a little bit of a memory lane. And I don't know if you heard, actually, we're going to skip this one, that the sponsorship report has actually shut down. And this is kind of, I don't know if you and I haven't chatted, but I want to actually, just as an industry person, have a little shout out to Mark Sadburn and Judith Barker before them. The sponsorship report, I think it was 35 years in Canada, covering articles. They did a great job of covering articles. Is that redundant? Covering the small stories and the big stories, profiling the industry players. Mark, I knew both Mark and Judith he was always at the different events. He was always giving people their due. And I have to tell you, I was a bit shocked and quite saddened when I got the notification that after 35 years, they've shut down.
Yeah, you know how tough it is to run a business for 20 years, let alone 35. And the fact is, great that they had it, great for the institution. But the fact is, there's going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, shutting down, given the current situation. Completely.
But, it kind of goes to me at the heart of the issue around journalism, which is, we can get all the information in many newsletters you can get anywhere. What I liked about the sponsorship report is they didn't just repackage other people's things. Mark interviewed people. He talked to you. He talked to me. He talked to our competitors. So no question, it's going to be tough to keep small businesses going. Sad to see the sponsorship report go. I just wanted to give a little shout out to Mark.
Big shout out,
people, because what they did for the community, I think, is vital, and we need more of it.
Absolutely. Everyone have a good one. And we will see you hopefully next Friday.
And 2 words you're not allowed to say: Trump not going to the inauguration. And that means there won't be COVID at the inauguration, because those people that are there will wear fucking masks.
I'm going to make my list. Goodbye.